go. Welcome everybody to the RockRidge School Board Candidate Forum held today on October 20th, 2020. And our allotted time is scheduled from 6:30 p.m. to 8 o'clock tonight. And during that time, we're going to be asking our candidates questions that the Education Minnesota members from the RockRidge School District put together to help form their ideas and stances on some of the different topics that have come up with the school board. So I'd like to welcome everybody and thank you for your attendance here tonight. As far as the candidates go, I wish we could have more people here in attendance for the audience members, but hopefully we're able to see this online at your convenience. So again, welcome and thank you to the candidates, community members that are viewing, the Education Minnesota Teachers Union for developing the questions and sponsoring this event. Some guidelines to go over for tonight is that the premise of the forum tonight is an opportunity for candidates to present their positions on the local school board topics to the community. Candidates are asked to keep their responses focused on their positions, on the topics presented, and be respectful of other candidates. Each candidate will be given the opportunity to give an opening statement for 1.5 minutes. And as we ask each question, you'll have 1.5 minutes to respond to that question. Each candidate has been given a list of 10 questions prior to the forum, prepared by the Education Minnesota members. Following the opening statements, each candidate will be asked a question from the list of prepared questions and be given time to respond. I have a rotation of the candidates to invoke fairness for everyone. So as I go through the list, if you are first, then we'll move on to somebody else being first next so that you won't always be the first person asked the question. If you are not able to hear me, please raise your hand or wave at me so that you can understand. Otherwise, I do plan to read the question at the beginning. I'll reference which number question I'm asking. Everyone has a copy of the questions in front of you. And if you need me to repeat the question to you, I will read it. Otherwise, I'll just read it at the beginning so that the audience understands which question I'm asking. Okay? Let's see, the candidates are not allowed to distribute campaign literature during our forum. Not a huge issue tonight as we're just the candidates here. At the conclusion of all questions of our and or with our allotted time, candidates will be given time for a closing statement of up to a half a minute. Voting takes place on November 3rd, and we'll begin with our questions and opening statements. All right. So I think we'll start with opening statements. Again, we have 1.5 minutes for each opening statement. I don't think I introduced myself at the beginning of this, so I'm Brian Yurtich. I'm your moderator tonight for the candidates. If we have any questions, please let me know. All right. So I think we'll start with Mr. Addy here as your opening statement, and you have 1.5 minutes.
Well, my name is Bill Addy. I'm a Evelyn Gilbert School Board member. I've been on the board for 4 years, and out of those 4 years, I've served as the vice chair, the treasurer, the chair of the Evelyn Gilbert board for 1 year, and for 1.5 years, I served a half year as the chair for the Evelyn Gilbert board, and I am now serving as vice chair of the RockRidge School Board. Okay.
All right, thank you. We'll just go around the room here. So, Ms. Lotiger?
Is it okay if we slow
Yes.
down? Because
Yep.
that's been one thing that people
Sure.
have said has been difficult in hearing.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm Brandy Lotiger. I have been on the board serving our communities for the past almost 4 years. I am running for re-election because the future of our district matters to me as a alumni, a proud alumni of Evelyn Gilbert, as well as a parent and as a citizen. When we went out for the public vote for consolidation and for collaboration or vice versa, collaboration and consolidation. It's my belief that it was passed because of the educational opportunities that it presented for our students. And so I would like to be reelected because I want to see that come to fruition, the educational piece for sure. If you like what you hear tonight from me, I encourage you to vote for Lotiger on November 3rd.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Anderson.
I've heard that before. Good evening. My name's Murray Anderson. First off, I would like to thank Education Minnesota RockRidge, Mr. Uritich, and Channel 12. Just a couple of things about me. I've been married for 38 years. I have 2 married sons. I have 5 grandchildren. I'm expecting the 6th at the end of November. Both my daughter-in-laws and 1 son in school. I spent 36 years of my career as a teacher, retiring in 2015, and I have union experience. I'm proud of the work that our boards have done, but some of the things that, besides the obvious with the things, we've had balanced budgets, no deficit spending, healthy reserve fund. We've raised the graduation rate, maintained high standards in state testing, and institute programs for student success and a brighter future. One of my statements to begin with, I'm pursuing the at-large position on the RockRidge School Board. The future of our students should be in the hearts, hands, and minds of forward-thinking members. All students, not Evelyn, not Gilbert, not Virginia, but all students in RockRidge. The past is what we learn from, but the present and future is where we strive to go and to carry our students' education to the highest level.
Thank you. Ms. Baraboo.
My name is Gail Baraboo. I've served on the Virginia School Board and now RockRidge for 4 years. During this time, amazing things have happened with our schools. There was a vision to create 21st century educational opportunities for our students. Historic rivals became collaborators. We put in many hundreds of hours of work planning and communicating with our communities, and they said, yes, go ahead with this. And we are underway. Funding is in place, buildings are going up, but there's much work that remains to be done. And if reelected, I will put my heart and soul into carrying that work forward. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Forty.
My name is Mark Forty. RockRidge is by far the best thing that has happened to public education in our corner of the Iron Range. I am proud of my involvement in the RockRidge process dating back to 2014. I see 4 major areas of benefit to our students: stronger academics, expanded social opportunities, improved quality of fine arts, and upgraded athletics. I will continue to work hard to allow more of these 4 benefits to become a reality for all of our students. Consolidation can be a long and difficult process, filled with emotion. A consolidated school board faces many difficult issues, but it must keep in mind what is good for the student body as a whole. Our job begins with the onus to be good financial stewards of the money entrusted to us for our students' education, to spend it prudently and appropriately. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Visserhoff.
All right, first I would like to thank the teachers and everyone involved for putting on the forum. I would like to start off by saying my name is Catherine Disterhaft, and I live in Evelyn, Minnesota. I have 2 children, a kindergartner and a 3T child. Their education is very important to me. They are just starting the educational system here on the range. I represent you and your concerns. I will listen and be honest and protect our protect our tax dollars. Please check out my Facebook page under Catherine Distraft and add a friend to request me. I will provide more information about my positions and provide answers to the forum questions if you are unable to listen to the entire forum. I have a bachelor's degree and a master's degree in biology and ecosystems management. I have substitute taught in various classrooms, schools, and grade levels on the range and beyond. I work as an as-needed consultant in Virginia. I was also a sabbatical replacement at the first semester at the Vermillion Technical College in Ely, Minnesota. With my background, I bring my experiences as a parent, educator, and community member to this school board position. I also bring my planning skills and analytical skills to evaluate topics to come to the best decision as possible. I'm running for school board so that my kids have a great education. I've tried to provide feedback through the Zoom, school board meetings, and writing letters without any success. That is why I am here today. I have received different answers from the superintendent and with the school board, and they go back and forth with who had the decision, and they drag their feet until it's too late to make changes to the Evelyn Gilbert K-6 building. I've gotten involved in the past 1.5 years. When I'm on the school board, I will be transparent and honest with what's going on. I'll use my Facebook account to provide summary of items discussed and links to meetings and minutes, as it's sometimes difficult to find. I want the superintendent and other school board members to be held accountable. I also want open communication, as if members of the public provide comments, I will listen and respond to their requests. Also, if the public wants informational decisions, I will present the facts and not be a salesman and provide one side of the argument. Many aspects of the consolidation information was misleading, and advisory groups that made decisions were not public. The public is paying the taxes, and decisions about the future school buildings, curriculum, and should be public, and the public's voice should be heard. I would like RockRidge School District to be the best for all kids. I will represent you and our concerns. I will listen and represent you. Vote District Half on November 3rd, if you agree with what I represent.
Thank you. Mr. Crumpotich.
My name is Mark Crumpotich. I live in West Eveleth. I have 3 children in the district. I went to high school in Greenway, graduated in 1985, graduated from Moorhead State in 1989. I lived in several Twin City suburbs. We started our family in Shakopee, Minnesota. We moved our family to Eveleth 15 years ago and absolutely love being back on the Iron Range. I regret not running for the school board 2 years ago and feel this is something that I need to do for myself, the EG taxpayers, and students. I've been relatively outspoken and passionate about some subject matters over the past 2 years regarding the collaboration and consolidation, and will continue to want what is best for Eveleth Gilbert. Some out there would say I was against the new school, which simply isn't true. I feel Nelle made some poor and rushed decisions along the way, which the current school board went along with, and now we're paying for it. With the RockRidge district being formed, I want to make sure that EG students, taxpayers are treated equally, and most importantly, not forgotten.
Thank you. All right, so we'll begin with question 1. So if you refer to question 1 on your list of questions, and I think we'll start with Ms. Lotiger. All right. How would you balance the dual role of being both a representative of the community and a representative of the school system?
I would say that I balance the dual roles by listening to all stakeholders and taking their input into consideration when making board decisions. I've always been an advocate for getting public input and for getting information out to the public. How do I do that myself? I have a Facebook page as well, Brandy Lotiger, EG School Board Director, where I post information on meetings, agendas, dates and times, and things like that, and important information. In addition to these things, our board as a whole brings balance with our personal educational backgrounds and work history. I would like everybody to think of the board as a puzzle. As for me, my educational background is my heart and passion for kids. So that's my puzzle piece. For Bill, he's a business owner, and he is more of a numbers guy. That's his puzzle piece. We all bring balance to the board as a whole from our experiences and diverse backgrounds. So that's how I would balance the dual role and how I have in my 4 years of representing our communities.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson.
Serving on the board is one of the most important commitments a citizen has to our students and the rest of the citizens in the RockRidge community. I have no underlying mission or agenda. I want to listen to concerns. I need people to contact me. And when they do, I try to do the best I can to get back to them. By adopting great standards and programs, we will directly affect our community and students' future.
On the community and as a community member, it's important as a board member that I listen to the community input and understand what the community is wanting and will support. I should bring that information to school board decision-making and add that perspective to our discussions. I should be informed and communicate what is possible to do as a board and make the public aware of our financial responsibilities, of the state statutes we are working under, and have transparency in all of our dealings. We should share our reasoning with the public for the decisions we make. Communication in both directions is key, and not having an agenda is also key.
Okay. Mr. Forty,
Okay,
question 1.
the main responsibility of a school board member is to ensure the best possible educational system for our communities. My focus will be on our schools and students, to make our communities proud to be known across the region, state, and beyond as an area that came together and put education first. To get our schools to be the best they can be, the board needs to continuously focus on being good financial stewards of the school district funds. I will work to make our schools and students the best representatives of our communities. Our students will be ambassadors for ours. Students are the ones that go out there when they go off campus on band trips, knowledge bowl meets, volunteering inside and outside of the schools, by putting on great plays, being competitive in athletics across the state, and being good citizens. I hope our adults follow their example and represent our communities as well as the students. The board's responsibility is to provide the best system we can, step back, and let the students grow.
Thank you. Ms. Distrahat.
Okay. So I forgot to say that I was running for that large position. I would balance the dual role of being representative of the community and representative of the school system in many ways. First, I'm honest and I want to know what the community thinks. For example, the Evelyn-Gilbert area vote was close to 50%, yet members from the Evelyn-Gilbert School Board, such as Bill Eddy and Brady Lonergan, did not represent the public, as the votes were close, and they have not even listened to the constituents such as myself or returned phone calls. The bid packet was closed, and the bid packets for the Evelyn-Gilbert pre-K were open before the consolidation vote. This is not proper procedure, and these school board members should have spoken up and said something. And wait to publish the bid packet. If it was up to the public to decide the consolidation vote, If the vote would not have passed, there would not have been any state money for the building or to award the contract of a bid that was already opened and already occurred. The current incumbents and superintendents are not following the current statutes with regards to ethics, and they are not holding each other accountable. It's a very hostile environment if you go back and review any of the prior school board meetings of the joint powers of the current board. If you do not agree with the chair or the superintendent, they will cut you off after a minute and a half or less. They currently do not give the public information, even though they're all saying that they do. The information or replied to you, as I've had experience with this. I also have requested documents that I still have yet to receive that are required by the Data Practices Act. I will request, if I'm on school board, I will request the detailed budgets and have the superintendent show the school board data and costs to be presented in order to make decisions. For example, a decision about the bus garage, which cost this school district $600,000. There were numbers that the construction contractor did not have for the school board to make a decision. I would not have been willing to vote on that decision without that contractor having the amount of money being put on. I attended a joint powers board meeting where the school design was approved, yet they did not even show the public present what the design was, and public comments were at the end after the design was already approved. This is not public involvement. I also attended a listening session for the new school design, and both superintendent and the Krause-Andersons would not provide me copies of the designs to look at. This, again, is not public input. The Krause-Anderson representative did not even take notes of the public comments, and when they were called on that, they said they could remember that all. I know many who cannot, and I thought that was very disrespectful for the public present and continues to be the case with all my experiences. Thank you.
Mr. Crumpotich, question one.
The dual role, I looked at as two-sided. One, we taking care of the taxpayer, and the second, taking care of the kids. Evelyn Gilbert's taxes have just reached, excessive amounts. I mean, so much now where I think it's affecting the ability to sell a home. My personal taxes will hit $3,800 with this last referendum increase, and I'm not the only one out there that thinks that's outrageous. Mind you, I live in West Evelyn, below a mine dump, in a swamp, and we don't have curbs. So $3,800 is a scary number when you start paying $300 a month to live in your home. Many promises were made during the consolidation that levies wouldn't be increased. But with the early consolidation, it does open up some loopholes that the superintendent can choose to use and raise operating levies without a public vote to cover employee incentives. Our levies need to be monitored with zero increases and promises fulfilled to the public that we voted for. Sometimes I feel school board members lose touch when they don't actively participate in school activities and functions. Having daily school conversations keeps you informed on what's going on within the school. Some of the recent responses and lack of concern holds true with the current board. For any board member to think that it was okay to disrupt our high school students to move the building up of the new Virginia Elementary has lost touch. I think having skin in the game on both sides makes a difference in your decision making on the school board, and I plan on making a difference, not just going with the flow.
And Mr. Addy.
Yeah,
question
I'm
one.
going to keep it simple.
Okay.
Okay, my job as a school board member is to look out for the best interest of the students, past, present, and future. And that's what I was elected for, to serve the school and the taxpayers. And that's what I have to say.
Okay, thank you.
Really.
We will move on to question number 2, and Mr. Anderson will be the first to respond to it. So question number 2 is, other than completing the construction of the new buildings, consolidating contracts, and developing the academy's project-based model curriculum, what do you believe are the next educational and operational priorities the district should address?
Thank you. Well, I divided my answer into two, and one is operational and one is educational. In the educational part, I think there's I wrote down 5 things. I'm sure there's more. Number 1 is ask questions. Are the students excelling and accepting the new type of education? Number 2, do we need to expand the academies? Do we need to offer more things? Number 3, evaluate and review. Are changes needed within the way we teach it? Number 4, review procedures that got us to where we are. Maybe some of those procedures need to be changed. Number 5, gain info or information from our best resources, our students, our instructors, our administration, and our parents. Operational, I have 3 written down: schedules, transportation, and services that we provide. We have to review and update the whole picture to help raise students' level of excellence continually. Thank you.
I too divided into 2, and this stuff doesn't occur in a linear fashion. There's a number of things going on all at the same time, so it isn't a matter of first you do this and then you do that. Educationally, after we have the curriculum in place, we need to prepare our teachers to implement the curriculum. And that's underway already. Teachers are learning and have been sent to places to learn from other academies, programs, and other schools that are already doing this stuff. And secondly, we have to ascertain how to engage the students in this new model of learning. In other words, they have to fit, and we have to figure out where they fit and want to fit in this new way of learning. Operationally, there's a number of things, many of which are being looked at or worked on already. Transportation, technology, scheduling of staff, budgeting of our resources, and most of all, and probably most importantly of all, creating unity and harmony within our schools, supporting what's going on. The more we address beforehand, the smoother the transition will be. Thank you.
Thank you. 40.
Okay, you're going to hear a repeating theme in some of my answers. And I can start with one word on this question, and that is money. The board needs to know RockRidge's financial situation before we can adequately address any issues we are going to face. I hope I am wrong, but I am nervous as to the financial condition of RockRidge, and here's why. The Minnesota Department of Ed uses the audited unassigned general fund balance at the end of each school year as an indication of the district's financial health. A positive unassigned fund balance is highly recommended. At the end of the fiscal year 2016, Evelyn Gilbert had a fund balance of almost $5.3 million. They followed that with 3 years of losses, $129,000, $499,000, $1,491,000, and a budget for fiscal year that just ended in June of this year, a loss of $495,000. That brought that unassigned balance, will bring that unassigned balance down to $2,675,000. Then there was a commitment of $3 million to the new elementary. If that comes out of the general fund, which I am told it is going to, or has been, that leaves a negative balance of some $386,000. The Virginia School Board committed $2.5 million of their unassigned general fund balance to the public, or to the RockRidge High School. That's a total of $5.5 million potentially diverted from RockRidge's operational budget. I am in no way saying that those commitments were wrong, but the whole RockRidge board must know the financial ramifications of those two transfers before taking any action on any operational issue facing our new district. That is a part of just being good financial stewards, knowing what you have in the bank. That, cash in the bank, is another topic I might get to later. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Wisterhout.
Yeah, okay. The educational operational priorities the district should address are putting more time into helping for the current situation and helping to provide support to teachers, parents, support staff with distance learning and technology needs. Currently, the distance learning parents and students are expected to learn multiple computer programs, and it also takes a couple of days to get replies with technology staff if you are having problems with the program. Second is looking at different teaching models and finding the best one that will work for students to learn from. Once a model is picked, then everyone needs to have training on the next teaching model. Instead of what happened with the combined is that basically whoever was hired for that particular, whether it was Virginia or Evelyn Gilbert, it went with that teaching model, and no joint decisions were made, neither was any training. This is not healthy or good for students and teachers. My third goal is defining what 21st century skills are. I went to one curriculum planning meeting last summer that was open to the public, and ideas were thrown out, but this is a very broad term, and the school district has yet to define these. Fourth, everything needs to be slowed down to evaluate regarding the consolidation. The public and the district should be directing the Krause-Anderson consultant, but instead it's the other way around. If you go to any of the school board meetings. I was at a public bidding meeting and I was asked to leave by one of the Krause-Anderson staff, even though I was doing nothing, which was very unprofessional for a district contractor to ask a member of the public to leave, who then after the meeting apologized. This is not okay. The current school board and superintendent are not listening to public's concern and representing them. And this is regarding the advisory meetings that are being held that are not open to the public to provide comment. It also took me until this summer to get copies of information that that is public after multiple requests. It is not okay that the Evelyn Gilbert building does not, the pre-K through 6 does not have a library or an auditorium or a bear care room. And these are things that they currently have. And their indoor play area is modified and is not the way it should be. I believe that these can be addressed and modifications can be made, especially now that money has to even be cut from the building budget. I'm very concerned with the budgets, especially with all the additional administrative staff that have been added to the current state, and we have yet to fully understand what it is. Thank you.
Well, the question itself sounds like it's enough to do when it's read, so. Two things come to mind. We must keep the students we have now, and I agree with Mr. Forty, we need to scrutinize the budget. We've got a beautiful school coming, we need to make sure we have the students to generate the income for it to flourish. Noel seems to think that people will move here to go to our new shiny school, and that just won't happen. Jobs will bring families here, not the building. I'm worried the district may have spent too much money on administration, new titles and positions that are not yet proven or possibly even needed. At some point, we need to balance the budget and not just continue to add positions. We are not Minnetonka. We need to make sure that the positions we hire for are full-time positions and not just providing a title without a full-time workload.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Addy?
Well, on that, I'm going to have them backwards on the educational part and the operational. I'll start with the educational part of it first. I mean, the operational part first. I mean, it's important, as Mark said, that we maintain our enrollment. I mean, that's important. Enrollment is dollars to our district. Without that, you're going to take. Also, to what Mark touched on, that reduce administrative costs, administrative overhead. I think we're a little bit top-heavy on administration, as a lot of people have found, a lot of studies have found we're top-heavy on administration. So I believe that have a fair and balanced hiring process as we move into the new buildings to maintain the operational cost, because I do believe that administration does count for a pretty good percentage of the cost. As far as the educational part goes, I would adapt the curriculum to meet the needs of the local economy. This is the largest school district construction project in the history of the Iron Range, and the first consolidation in 15 years in Minnesota, and the largest consolidation in the state as well. So we got to get it right. So that's what I have to say.
Thank you. Ms. Lotiger, question 2.
All right, thank you. So educationally, we need to ensure that staff is receiving the support they need to perform their jobs. We can't just drop something in their lap and say this is what we're going to do and expect them to hit the ground running. We need to make sure that they're getting ongoing trainings, collaboration time, and the technical support they need. We also need to make sure that everything is streamlined so that the left hand knows what the right hand is doing. There's going to be like 4 islands, and that's, the Evelyn Gilbert Elementary, the Parkview Elementary, the Roosevelt, and the high school. So communication, that's key. As far as educational delivery, that's changing. It's changing at varying degrees at the various levels. And we need to make sure that we are supporting the teachers. The more support that we show the teachers, the more it's going to benefit our students, both in their engagement as well as their academics and test scores. Operationally, we need to reevaluate the need for the newly developed positions created to get this new model of education up and running. We also need to continue to build relationships with businesses as well as the local colleges. That's vital in making sure that the operation of the new academy model is up and running and a well-oiled machine. We need to continue those relationships and keep nurturing them, especially in the years to come. Lastly, communication is going to be key in successful operation. Like I said, we need to make sure we're streamlining things and that the left hand knows what the right hand is doing. That's not just, communication is key, not just inside the building, but what is coming out of the building as well and communicated to our communities. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We'll move on to question number 3, and we'll begin with Ms. Baraboo. So the question is, at the September 28th, 2020 school board meeting, the board was presented with new construction timeline and student relocation options. Do you support deviating from the original plan? Why or why not?
I'll start by saying the first discussion we had at all about any of the scenarios presented was at the last school board meeting. We were thrown the information out at the meeting before. No discussion was had, no meetings were held. There was nothing discussed about it at all. So I would say it would be a benefit if all the new schools came online as soon as it was safely possible to do that. If it's feasible, yes. If it's financially beneficial, we don't know that yet. We're waiting for numbers. And we have to take a look at numbers because nothing's getting any cheaper in a construction field right now. And as we said, it's a concern about the money involved. It has to be done safely, and I would not support anything that didn't keep the high schools separate and in their own schools. And if, we don't know if Krause-Anderson can even accomplish this as far as keeping the kids there while they're working on the Roosevelt School. So we don't have enough information yet, and we will be getting it. There should be minimal disruption in any way that we move kids from one place to another to accomplish this. Roosevelt kids will be disrupted no matter what, because we can't build or destroy a building around them. So they will be disrupted, and I don't know that it matters very much if it's on the front end or the back end of the time frame. We need to get more information before we can make a decision, but I think it possibly could be done and save money at the same time. Thank you.
Jason, Mr. Addy is no battery as well. Might as well bring extra back.
Now you got to share again.
Okay, I think Mr. Forty, if you want to address question number 3.
Okay? No, at the present time, I do not support deviating from the original plan. Not yet, but I might be supportive of a deviation. But I need to look at the financial impact of every one of the scenarios that was presented to us. Although I would love to see the new Virginia Elementary School open sooner than the original date, I will not support or eliminate any of the scenarios. Confuse me with some financial facts, then I'll make a decision. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. The school board should stay with the original plan with the construction timeframe. This is what was voted on by the public and was agreed to. This is for the emotional and psychological well-being of students, families, teachers, support staff, and everyone involved. Regarding all the changes with the consolidation with COVID, it has caused a lot of families emotional and psychological distress. Any more changes might just put people over their limits. Students and parents and teachers are just trying to get through the school year with all the issues with COVID, let alone making them deal with all these other changes. It is just too much. And the whole consolidation process needs to slow down so the time can be used to help students, parents, and teachers and support staff be successful this school year, especially going from hybrid and coming back and going back and forth. It is challenging enough for some. Moving mid-year is very, very disruptive for everyone, and some students will have a difficult transition, especially younger students or students who might have an individual performance plan. Some students with anxiety and fears, a lot of the younger children will have a difficult time. For some, it may take several months to adjust, and changing their routines can cause students to act out in the classroom. And this then has less learning will occur because the teachers will have to spend more time with classroom behavior instead of with students learning with this change. Especially since we do not know the state budget for this next school year with the effects from COVID, how can you continue to move forward and not plan? Currently, the school board and the superintendent is reacting to unexpected items, which ends up costing more in the end. The reactive approach, again, referring to that bus garage, cost $600,000. We need more open decision-making that would have went to the school board than what, so that the precious funds could be used for other items. In summary, everything just needs to be taken into more consideration. The budget is a concern, but the emotional and psychological well-being is very important. Students, that's one of the basic needs that needs to be met before those students can be successful in that school year. Thank you.
No, I do not support deviating from the original plan. Nothing that was on paper at that last meeting was acceptable. not at the cost of our current students. I believe that once a timeline project are voted on, you should give the public what's promised, not what's convenient for administration. I spoke at that school board meeting and expressed my displeasure with the board even considering several of those options. Some of those options were turning our kids' lives upside down yet again in 2021. I was personally embarrassed that Noel would even put them down on a piece of paper. Noel needs to understand that someone's word on the Iron Range means something. He has failed to grasp that yet. Give us what we voted on. Fulfill your promises, at least a couple of them. There's also board members here at the table that responses were inexcusable and showed that they're out of touch on where students are in 2020 and what all our students have dealt with since last spring. Noel's follow-up article in Sunday's paper as a response to that board meeting showed the total disrespect he has for parents and students of the district. Personally, after reading it, I was embarrassed for him.
All righty. Question 3. No, I do not support deviating from the original plan. There was not enough information that was presented to the board. It was never discussed prior to the regular board meeting. And I never kind of understood why the construction timeline slipped 1 year. Why are we back 1 year? Okay, why are we back 1 year? But to be presented the scenarios without financial savings has no support from me. Consensus at the table had no support. So, no support of moving or combining schools. I don't think being reactive, as Catherine says, we weren't being reactive. We were just taking in information. And I'm not here to debate. I'm just saying, we were just given information as a board, and we were crucified for even considering these scenarios. So at this time, I'm going to say no. Thank you.
All right, question number 3. I think that this is a classic example of question number 1 regarding our dual role and balance. Though I have personal feelings about an early move for a variety of reasons, including the fact that I too have a high school student in the district, it's my responsibility to the taxpayers of our community to listen with an open mind when presented with potential cost savings to the district, regardless of if it is about a moving scenario or transportation or anything else for that matter. During the meeting that's mentioned, the September 28th meeting, and the subsequent one, I spoke to the importance of keeping our word, and I also voiced concerns about any option that involved a winter transition. With that being said, this isn't a question that has a cut and dry answer if we are truly doing our due diligence as board members. The scenarios were just presented to the board 3 weeks ago, and just the last meeting, 2 more scenarios were presented to the board. And like everybody else has echoed in here, we have no financial numbers saying if this would even be a substantial savings to the district. And I agree with Bill around the table. Everybody, majority of the people at the table stated that they wouldn't support it right now with the information we've received. They wouldn't support deviating. Even if we did have all the info, I would still want community input, and that was also brought up at, I believe, that September 28th meeting.
Mr. Anderson, question 3.
Number 3. First thing I wrote is definitely a hot topic. The first time we were presented the scenarios, it was a look of what is going on amongst almost all of us at the tables. Then the second meeting came and there was 2 more scenarios. After the impassioned plea by Mr. Crumpotich, we also recognized that the high school kids were getting gypped, excuse my language. They're fiddling with the high school kids. At that point in time, the majority of us at the meeting all agreed that Number one, we don't have enough information, and number two, we're not going to screw around with the high school kids. That was the feeling that I got. Now, I may or I may not support an early transition, but there are some questions. What are the savings, if there are any? Time of the year. Are we going to switch the elementary kids in a winter? Absolutely. As far as I'm concerned, absolutely not. Transportation costs, building capacities, teachers and administrators and parents' recommendations. We have to take it all into consideration if we're going to do something this drastic. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We'll move on to question number 4. We'll begin with Mr. Forty, and the question is, what is your opinion on the designation of attendance boundaries?
Well, like a lot of the issues the school board faces, this one is not going to be easy either. Our best guide in this is going to be looking at the processes used by school districts across the state when they had to redraw attendance boundaries, when they were forced to reduce the number of elementaries in their school district, close some buildings. We're not closing buildings, but we're drawing lines, which we're setting those boundaries. There are a lot of emotions in this issue, like most of the others that the board faces. While respecting and understanding the emotional arguments, the board must first and foremost be thinking of the student body as a whole, and what is the best action for us currently and in the future. We have significant open enrollment between our current elementaries. Do we honor those? Do we allow new open enrollment after the attendance boundaries are set? It's not going to be easy. Thank you.
So it is important that the attendance boundaries are needed to maintain consistency within the pre-K and K schools. And currently, part of the reason for the difference in numbers is a lot because Virginia, the pre-K programs, the 3 and 4 programs were free, whereas in Evelyn Gilbert, you had to pay $1,000 a year. That's a huge difference. So as a parent, yeah, I'm going to choose the one that's free versus one that's having to pay. Or if this is closer and it works better with my schedule, I'm going to pay the $1,000. But they're completely different programs. And no school will have better teachers, and they will receive updated training. There are a lot of problems with this, with students outside these attendance boundaries currently that have friends that are in those boundaries. So how are you going to address that? And then saying, well, okay, these are the attendance boundaries, but you've been going to Virginia, you need to come back to Evelyn Gilbert, but you've been going to Virginia for however many years. That's where all their friends are, and now you're telling them, no, you have to go to Evelyn Gilbert. That's going to cause lots and lots of problems. So one of the ideas, and I guess there has to be a lot, is that there's going to have to be a time lag where when they start the school, so if they're coming from a different school, that once the school's open, that any new students will need to be within their attendance boundaries. So that'd be starting at pre-K, like the 3s and the 4s, and at kindergarten, the new students to that district would then be within those attendance boundaries. Otherwise, when you start, changing it for high schoolers and middle schoolers, that's hard times, let alone having the difference and having to adjust to, now I've got to go to Virginia, and now I've got to go to Evelyn, depending upon where they're from. And then anyone outside the school district making a request for open enrollment will only be considered if the grade level has room. ASCO does a lottery system where the names go in a hat and the names are pulled out, and that is the order the open spots are filled, or you go on a wait list based on the order your name was pulled out of a hat. Cherry has a wait list based on when you call and you ask about it. Duluth has a wait list based on when you call and fill out application materials. And then they just go through the wait list based on openings. There's many schools that do this, but again, there has to be where we're drawing a line in the sand. As of this year, this is, you need to pick the school district, or you're staying with that school district. Once you leave, then you'll be reassigned to these. Otherwise, starting at the beginning. Otherwise, you're going to have lots and lots of problems. Thank you.
This was a bit scary to me at the last board meeting because I was under the impression that the new elementary schools were being built around these existing boundaries and it was a done deal. So I understand the open enrollment is a huge issue. I've been told it could be up to, it's close to 200 Evelyn Gilbert kids that are currently going to Virginia. Now that we're one district, I would guess that the parents would be willing to follow the boundaries versus, open enroll. However, these parents and children have chose to open enroll their students for one reason or another. So, maybe we should ask them. Maybe we should find out if we don't know. That seems logical to me. We've certainly done surveys for less important issues than that. But again, this is touchy. We cannot lose kids. That much I know. We need to figure it out. But I do not think the boundary should change, just maybe be enforced. I have not heard that this is one of the reasons for an early build on the new Virginia Elementary, but it surely could be an underlying factor.
Mr. Addy?
We have to have boundaries in place for optimizing efficiencies in transportation to the district. And to decrease the bus rides for these kids. We can't be having them going all over the place. We can't be having kids opening and rolling from Evelyn going to Virginia and then Virginia going to Evelyn. I mean, that just makes absolutely no sense to me. That is just a waste of money to have that. So these district boundaries are important. But we also must accommodate all those who choose to go to the elementary of their choice. If they live in Gilbert or in Evelyn and they want their kids to go to Virginia, well, I mean, you could either give them a ride there or have the parent give them a ride there or go to the elementaries that you were assigned to. I mean, if we start accommodating them, well, that's another cost factor to the district. But we should also understand that the students within our newly formed district come first. That if someone from Evelyn, Gilbert, or Virginia want to enroll in our elementaries in their assigned district, they have the first right of refusal. And that if someone from Cotton or Cook wants to come, well, if there's no room, then if there's room in Virginia, they would go there. If they came from Cotton, there's no room in Gilbert, they would go to Virginia. If there was room in Virginia. And that's why I feel these boundaries are important, that we need to serve the students from K through 12 in our district first. So, yes. Thank you.
Ms. Lotiger?
All right. So regarding attendance boundaries, really at this point, I don't have an opinion because we haven't discussed it much at the board level, other than to give guidance to the superintendent to start the process of finding consultants. But with that being said, this whole process started when I got on the board, so almost 3 years ago probably. It all started around the transportation conversation and about needing to look at transportation and how we can cut costs with transportation by working together. So I do believe that that is an important piece in this discussion. But until we are presented with all the information and the pros and cons, it's really hard for me personally to have an opinion about it.
Very good.
Thank you. Mr. Anderson?
Number 4, to address Mark real quick, not to debate anything, but when we were having collaboration meetings at Northeast Service Co-op, we were talking about boundaries already, so it didn't just happen now. I believe that attendance boundaries are going to help the district run more efficiently. Number 1, just by the transportation more than anything else. As Mr. Addy brought up, it's a difficult and challenging task with lots of emotions in a lot of cases. So it's going to take some work to do this if it is done. Some of the things that I thought about today, we as board members are going to have to reflect on these things. Maybe we'll have some help from a professional demographer or whatever. What are the transportation costs? What are the services we provide our students, maybe in one building but not in another building? And they don't live in that, within that boundary. Is our enrollment going to be, are we striving for balance with our enrollment between buildings? Also, going along with that, the building capacities. Okay? District goals by doing this. Why are we doing it? Is there a timeline? And I don't think there is right now. But we also have to meet with the public, the staff, and the administrators to help establish these boundaries. It isn't just something a demographer is going to throw out there and we're going to agree to. We've got to listen to everybody involved. So, thank you.
Ms. Bear for question 4.
Boundary designations are needed for planning transportation, for planning staffing and allocation of resources, and to allow families to plan how they're going to have their kids in which school. This is done in most schools where there's not one school that's large enough to accommodate the whole district. There's no financial benefit to going to the district on any level, going to Elwood or going to Virginia, like back in the old times before consolidation. Then it was a benefit if Evelyn kids came to Virginia. It was a benefit to Virginia. If Virginia kids went to Evelyn, it was a benefit to Evelyn financially. That isn't the case anymore. That's equaled out across the board now by consolidation. So that is not an issue. Our board has authorized looking into getting a consultant to help us do this in a proper, wise, and fair manner. And I do think we have to listen to community input up to a point, but these are decisions that need to be made based on what's good for the entire student body and the entire financial health of the district. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question, question 5, will begin with Ms. Disterhap. So the question is, the school board policy number 206 on public participation in school board meetings states that the purpose of the policy is to encourage and assure open public discussion at school board meetings. How do you interpret the policy's language and intent regarding public input at school board meetings?
So this is very important to me. For the public participation is critical. And since the two boards have merged, this is not occurring. I have several different cases and examples. For example, it took me 4 school board meetings to finally get answers and get my voices heard to a written request. The school board chair cut off my comments at several meetings after the minute and a half, while other people were allowed to go on. It's a matter or not if and the 1 minute and 30 seconds is not enough time to provide information or comments on multiple items, especially with the agendas. I also even sent my written comments out and received only 3 replies from the current school board members of 13 or 14. Then the superintendent did not even respond as I asked for an email that my letter was received, because I wanted to make sure, because sometimes there's glitches in the system. I was not even notified that my written comments were not read at the meeting. I found this out later. This is very disheartening to me. There used to be 2 times for public comments, once at the beginning and once at the end, but then it was moved to just then, and now it's just at the beginning. Also, decisions on changes to school scheduling, et cetera, and distance learning should have had more of a discussion, as there is not much discussion at the current school board meetings. I encourage the public to look at them and vote at the same meeting. This happened in August with the block scheduling and with distance learning. This does not even provide the public the opportunity to provide comments on the plan. When I'm on the school board, I will plan ahead and get the information out to the public in order to receive feedback from the community. The school board had lots of summer to have different plans for in-person, hybrid, and distance learning. Many other school districts had plans. Even if they didn't have the specific details, they had them before the governor made that decision. But our current school district didn't do any of that, and everything was kind of last minute. And myself as a parent, I'm like, well, what school supplies do I buy? What's it going to look like? And here we're waiting, and then we don't even get input on it. So currently, with the current school board, that public participation isn't occurring, and you're cut off. And so that chair needs to be a very unbiased chair. I would be open to public participation and actually have any public feedback. Again, if you have any comments on things I've said, please send me a friend request on my Facebook page, and I'd like to hear what comments you have regarding some of these concerns. Thank you.
Mr. Crumpotich, question 5.
A fun one. Well, I guess I'm certainly part of the public that can speak to this. I would say Evelyn did not do it well, and RockRidge currently does it worse. In my opinion, there's not even a portion of the public's voice being heard. The school board is horrible at replying to email, and most taxpayers aren't comfortable in the given situation to come up and speaking in front of the board. The public needs a podium and a microphone to speak from, like Evelyn provided. The public should have the opportunity to speak at the beginning of the meeting as well as at the end. Sometimes you want to speak to the board before the meeting or before a vote, and sometimes after the meeting, you may have an opinion on what was discussed during that meeting. The only way to make sure that the board members heard your message is to speak at the meeting. Most of my email requests go unanswered. In fact, some board members have never responded to me. Open public discussion never happens. I can give you a couple firsthand examples of this one. I spoke up during the superintendent's new contract discussions. I was put on Zoom. During that time, I gave my strong opinion on Noel's proposed salary and how it was out of line and we should negotiate it down since it hadn't been. I received some head nods, but no discussion. Bill asked, any questions for Mark? Nothing. Nobody said anything. After I was dismissed, Brandy spoke up, gave what I call a fence riding response, and gave me hope that she would vote to reevaluate, but certainly was not open to public discussion. I will say at the last RockRidge board meeting, Stacy at least responded to me and made me feel like she heard me. A couple of us spoke, and there was probably a dozen of us that came into that meeting. The disappointing part of that meeting was Noel sat 6 feet in front of me and never turned around to listen to me or the other parents speaking. He kept his back to me the whole time. This gave a very strong message that he didn't care what the public had to say.
Mr. Addy.
Well, Policy 206, MSBA Policy 206. I've always been a supporter of it. The public input at the beginning of the meetings. But you must understand that all input on 206 should be about what's on the agenda and not what's on your mind. I sat as a board chair and public input was given, and before you know it, a barrage of 17 questions came across 206 and none of them were related to the agenda. I believe that they should be related to the agenda, or at least related, and discussion should have a reasonable time limit to this discussion. I mean, if you give everybody like a couple of minutes each, and then, because a lot of people want to speak, but I'm a firm believer of 206 and public participation in the meetings, but it's got to be related to the agenda. Thank you.
All right, my turn. Okay, policy 206, the interpretation. So public is allowed to speak. If you contact the superintendent's office, give your name and the subject that you want to speak about. If you're with a group, you may have to have a spokesperson. The board can limit the amount of time allotted. The board chair gives permission to speak, and if things get out of hand, it's the board chair's duty to call the person out of order. And if that doesn't work, then we call a brief recess until emotions are calmed down and the situation is de-escalated. So that's my interpretation of policy 206. I will also say that when I was the board chair, I also worked with Jeff Carey on trying to get a brochure that explained to the public when they could speak and all the confusing information that they may find in this policy. I wanted a brochure done. That never happened, not because of anything that I did, because I was on top of that, but it didn't happen. So I have worked towards making sure that the public has their opportunity to speak. I do respond to emails. As a matter of fact, I think I've responded to both of these individuals. So that is my interpretation of policy 206. Thank you.
Before we get started, I would gladly reply, but the problem is, we found out that my email address is wrong. That's posted on the site. They spelled my name wrong. So it has been fixed. But this is an interesting, 206 is interesting in that Brandy and I are on the policy committee, and we just presented it to the full board for its first readings with review and some changes. One of the things that, a couple of the things that we revised is it's always going to be on the agenda, but it's going to be at the beginning of the meeting. I do support public input, okay? But there's some stipulations, and Brandy covered some of them, and I'm going to go over my list just so I don't miss anything. If you would like to speak at a board meeting, you must notify the chairman or the superintendent before the meeting. The board can limit the time. We can limit the number of speakers. Both sides can be heard. So if I spoke about one thing, and Mr. Fort wanted to speak on another thing, on the same thing, but he had a different perspective, that's the way you can do. You can also be ruled out of order, and Brandy covered that, but also you can be possibly asked to be removed if it's out of line. And there are privacy rights of employees and students when they do come to address the board. So, I support 206.
I support public input. It should be welcomed at meetings. It has to be a designated time limit, and it has to pertain to the agenda, and it should be controlled by the chair to keep the meeting on track. It should present a point of view, not debate with the board, not air a laundry list of complaints. It should be respectful. It should be not a place for discussing persons, teachers, or student complaints. I would change the wording of 206 to read public input, not public discussion.
Thank you. Mr. Forty?
I am 100% in favor of open public discussion by the board at our meetings. Public input has a place at our board meetings, always has and always will, always should have a place. Public input is for the public to express their views. It is a time for the board to listen to the public. It's not a time to debate with the public. Board discussion of agenda items in front of the public or in the public view is the school board's duty. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on to question 6, but prior to reading question 6, just so that it's in every candidate's mind, is that we're going to cross off question 7. We are crossing 7:45, and so we do have a few questions left, and just for time's sake, we're going to cross off question 7, okay? So question 6, we'll start with Mr. Crumpotich, and the question is, the district has temporarily implemented a block schedule for grades 7 through 12. Do you support block scheduling as an educational model? Why or why not?
I do not support block scheduling. I don't think it's good for either the teachers or the students. First off, I'm not a fan of the kids skipping quarters without their core classes. You don't want to go a quarter without math. You build with mathematics. You can't starve for a quarter and then eat twice as much the next quarter. The kids will be lost here. Once you fall behind in math, you never catch up. We all went to school with somebody who fell behind math and just never caught back up. I also know many parents that had to call before the school started to change their schedule so that their child had one single core class. For example, art, band, computers, and study hall doesn't cut it for most 7th grade parents. Also, my son has study hall the last hour of the day. Remember, there are only 4 classes with block scheduling. So there were 117 kids enrolled in that one study hall. I think there are 273 enrolled in 9 through 12, at least when I called for the numbers, that was the number. So 39% of the kids are in one study hall. Does that seem like a good use of their time? Not to mention they're in the auditorium where it's dark and no desk. Now for the teacher side of it, again, 4 1.5-hour blocks. I was shocked when the schedules were put on the board meeting a couple meetings ago. Some teachers were teaching 2 classes, then had a study hall, and then prep hour. So 3 hours of face-to-face students. I've heard elementary teachers comment that, aren't happy about that. Nor would I guess. Seems crazy that it rolled out this way to me. Again, I believe we hired for a curriculum position that was one of those flurries of the 100K jobs that were popping up everywhere that were approved. Not sure what this person is doing or not doing for Evelyn right now, but block scheduling seems to need some of their attention.
Hey, as far as block scheduling, I mean, I'll keep it brief. In this time of COVID, I do believe that keeping these kids in the classroom longer with less interaction with each other will decrease the spread of COVID. Just hopefully it doesn't make it here into our school and we have a big outbreak. I just hope that never happens. But it protects the staff and the students by limiting the spread and, of course, the interaction with the kids. I mean, for some people, COVID is not real. Some people, COVID is real. To me, I just follow the science and the doctors. COVID is real. Okay, there's people in this town. There's people in Gilbert, Evelyn, Virginia that have it. There's people we know that have died from it. As a matter of fact, I do believe we just had a basketball player from Chisholm, very famous basketball, not player, but coach who died from it. A lot of people don't seem to think it's real. But I'm one of those guys that I'm taking the science road, that it's real. So I believe this block scheduling is protecting our kids and our staff from the spread. If it's by limiting the spread of by decreasing the interaction. That's what I have to say about that.
All right. During a pandemic, which we are in with COVID, I absolutely support block scheduling to limit the exposure of our students. We need to keep them safe. So I absolutely support it during this time. Going forward with the academies model, I can also see it being of a benefit to have block scheduling for project-based learning and for situations where job shadowing might be taking place, because there are larger chunks of time, 80 to 90 minutes. But no offense to my math teachers out there, but I also know sitting in a classroom doing math for 80 to 90 minutes might be tough. Math wasn't my strong suit. So that might be tough. Schedules can be made to incorporate both, to have both block scheduling and having shorter blocks as well with a bell schedule. Ultimately, though, the teachers and administration know best, and I trust their judgment when making a recommendation to the board.
Thank you. This was when I saw the question, I thought back to all of the administrators, teachers that worked on this scheduling. Is it perfect? Absolutely not. Is it good for some kids? Great. Some kids are going to have to do some catch-up, and we don't want that. That's why they have right now, Wednesdays they come in for extra work. extra help. Block scheduling is a result of this COVID. At the last meeting, we agreed to an MOU with RockRidge, Education Minnesota RockRidge, and the district. That MOU expires in June of 2021. Is this block scheduling going to continue? Not at this point. It's going to be done in June of 2021. That MOU talked about hours taught, subbing instead of detention supervision, class size, no loss of teachers' rights. It's going to expire. Then we have to address it again if the pandemic is not under control. And we hope and pray that it does or is under control before June of 2021.
As others have said, COVID was the reason why block scheduling was instituted at this time, to decrease the movement of kids between classes and to hopefully allow more distance between them to prevent COVID. Also, there's a place for block scheduling where it allows more time for learning, for projects, and sometimes with technology issues happening during distance learning or during Zoom classes, by the time they get resolved the issues, the kids don't have any time to do the classwork or the teaching. The academies will be using block scheduling for some of their programs. This was done in Alexandria when we visited there, and it worked very well. The core classes were designed around the block schedules. They were shorter or longer or whatever, or daily or every other day. It has to be designed to fit the curriculum. So for right now, we're doing it for COVID. Later on, it'll be taking another look at how to do it with the academies. Thank you.
I support block scheduling as an educational model. I believe longer class periods are a benefit in the secondary classrooms. This is one of the areas where we need to be responsive to the expertise of the professionals, teachers, administration, and be open to their recommendations. Thank you.
Okay. Again, I'm Catherine Straft. So, a couple things. I feel the current school board members are using COVID as an excuse for making changes that have not been discussed or the public input has not been had done. They've had that when I provided different comments, and my comments were on the agenda and regarding points, and anyway, going into that. I do not think block scheduling works for every class or grade level. This year, teachers were thrown into block scheduling without the data and statistics to support that this is the best educational model to have for grades 7 through 12. Teachers do not have the training or background to restructure their class to fit this length of time. With my substitute teaching, in some classes it's difficult to keep students' attentions even for the prior time frame, let alone longer. It is required that these teachers are using the trial and error method to find out what's working this current school year. This may not be the best for teachers or students. For example, cramming the sciences into block scheduling doesn't work. It is too much material and takes time to learn. It's easier to do lectures and then labs another day, similar to college classes. Having band or music in one block does not work either because you need to continue practice, otherwise you forget things. I play the flute, and I can tell you when I didn't practice, I forgot a lot. Also, too much time can occur between these blocks, where a year could pass between learning 9th and 10th grade math or sciences. Then teachers will spend more time reviewing concepts instead of students learning new material. We should be looking at the schools that are on top of the state with test scores, etc., and asking what are they doing that our school district is not doing to improve. We need to be analytical in the process and detailed. We need to be proactive and not reactive to situations. Teachers need training and collaboration when the district decides to change or staff retires or turnover. The new staff need to have the same same training on topics that their peers have. Teachers should have a yearly refresher on policies and bullying and how the procedures are done. The teacher and support staff should have discussion and evaluations how the school year went and how to make changes to improve this from year to year. I haven't ever heard of that. If training for parents and teachers and support staff is needed, then it should occur before the school starts for planning purposes. For example, with a lot of the technology, that could have happened over the course of the summer. Again, picking one platform would be a lot easier for parents. A lot of quick decisions with, again, the excuse of COVID was made. That's not an excuse for changes. You could do, in regards to the whole COVID, you could take precautions and do more hybrid classes to limit exposures and the number of kids. Many other districts are doing this. Duluth, where there's more cases, they're doing a lot of this. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So moving on to question number 8, and we'll begin with Mr. Addy. The question is, with the addition of numerous administrative positions that have significantly increased administrative costs, would you support previous administrative statements that there will be no new money when negotiating the new Education Minnesota, RockRidge teacher, and AFSCME support staff contracts?
I like this question, number 8. Because I want to know who said there's going to be no new money. Does anybody here at the table know who said there was going to be no new money?
Noel?
I never heard that, have you?
Yep. Yep, was at one of the first meetings.
Okay. As said in question 2, I'd reduce the administrative costs as we move into the new buildings. And I am not here with question 8 to negotiate or speculate on any upcoming contracts. I don't believe, I feel that it's not right that we be even talking about 8. Okay? Okay. Being we haven't, you talk about number 8, but we haven't any information on the state funding. Teachers and educators are the heart and soul of the district, and we need to put them first. But as far as number 8, I just have a tough time with this question. I feel it shouldn't have never been on there. That's all I got to say.
So when I was looking at the question, I had similar thoughts as Bill. I'm not sure what is being asked of this question because I'm not aware of any comments being made to that effect. But what I will say, it makes no sense to have one teacher making X amount of money and the other teacher across the hall doing the same job for the same amount of years making less money. Same goes for AFSCME. It makes no sense to me. We need to work together for a fair solution in the upcoming negotiations.
When I saw this question, it was somewhat blurred as far as I was concerned. Number one, who's on the negotiations committee? I have not heard that from that statement, okay? The negotiations committee would have that knowledge. Then I started looking at the numerous administrative positions that have been hired. I know of 2 that have been hired since the consolidation. The HR and fundraising and the building liaison. We have lost a 4 positions have been reduced. A superintendent, a bookkeeper, a grounds person, and a transportation advisor. It brought up that a business liaison was, and a tech person, but that was hired by the Virginia board before consolidation. A .4 dean was hired by the Evelyn Gilbert board. This happened all before consolidation. It seems like more because of the shifting and the retirements, but to me, it just didn't seem like there was that many more additions. And I go along with Bill. We are not on the negotiations team. We don't know the facts from the state yet. We don't know the facts from the union yet. Both sides will desire a fair and equitable contract.
I served on the school board finance committee for 4 years, and I was also a part of the finance committee that secured financing for the new schools. And I have to tell you, the administration's statement is correct that there is no new money. The reason for that is, even though we got huge grants for our new school, that grant money is not available for teacher wages or AFSCME wages or benefits. The grant money that's granted has to be used for the reason it was granted, the new school. It has to be reported to the IRRB and the state of Minnesota how that grant money was used, and it has to comply with the parameters that are put on it. The administrative positions that were created, several of which were allowed under the grant because they were crucial to developing the concept of the Academy's school. So those did not come out of, they came out of the grant. And several of those positions have short terms on them for the duration of putting this all together. So that explains why the administrative positions, we were able to do that. The money for wages and benefits are derived from the same sources they've always been derived from the state of Minnesota, from taconite money, from referenda. The state of Minnesota barely just passed a bonding bill for projects. They're in the red. Even though they were desiring to give schools more money, I don't think that that's going to happen this year. Taconite money is down for all people receiving taconite money because of the production slowdown and halting during COVID. These sources are the number of students and the poverty or richness of the communities are taken into consideration by the state as to what funding you get. And if you have a more poverty area, you get more help from the state of Minnesota. But these are all based on formulas. So there's no new money that's available for this purpose. And that's the truth.
I viewed this question kind of as negotiation posturing. But beyond that, I have presented my concerns earlier this evening on the financial situation for RockRidge. Based on my current understanding, there very well could be no new money. I know there's no more free money coming to the Evelyn-Gilbert School District, the old school district, from their royalty payments that they were receiving. That amounted to like $5.6 million since 2012, but that's gone. That won't be coming in anymore. They're not mining out of those tax forfeited leases anymore. I haven't seen a detailed comparison of individual school districts' budget that fed into the RockRidge budget. So I really don't know what wiggle room, what might have been built in for salaries. Again, I consider this a hypothetical posturing for negotiations, and I can't get specific on whether there's new money or not overall. Thank you.
So I'm just going to say out, I'm normally a fast talker and I'm kind of nervous. So if you didn't catch, to the public, if you didn't catch any of my comments, again, please look at my Facebook page or, ask me questions. I apologize for being a fast talker. My nerves are getting the better of me. So anyway, I would like to say that the school district, I'm actually very concerned about the increase in taxes in regards to and being within budget. As with my understanding is the school board has to cut from the building budget right now. And so I'm concerned with all these additional hires and moving forward and, not being able to have certain things and having to have a fundraising position. I thought we had enough money. But my main concern is the school district is not holding true to most of the information provided in all the questions and answers in the hometown focus prior to the 2 different consolidation votes for the public. It was stated that if the consolidation would occur, it would cost more. If the consolidation would not occur, it would cost more in administrative positions, but this is proving to not be true. And also, the other thing that it really bothered me is the fact that prior to the consolidation, that if the consolidation didn't occur, that the 2 districts couldn't have been apart, and they could have been. And there was a lot of misleading information, and I continue to keep getting misleading information. Again, I'm really concerned it is costing the taxpayers much more with all the additional administration positions to an already tight budget. That was part of the reason for the consolidation, was to have more resources with money and funds like that. It will be very difficult to negotiate the teachers and the ASME contract because of the differences in pay positions between the Virginia and Evelyn-Gilbert positions. A lot of different teachers have left the Evelyn-Gilbert school district to go to the Virginia because of pay. How we find that middle ground when you only have so much money in the district and you still need to account for inflation. Are the Virginia teachers going to be okay with having a pay cut in order to bring up some of the Evelyn-Gilbert when, there isn't necessarily the money there? So there's a lot of concerns with this. And again, it's going back to that budget and not reining in some of that spending. And, if some of the teachers are taking a pay cut, is, the superintendent willing to take a pay cut during this negotiation with that too? It's got to be, someone's got to lead the way, and I would expect the superintendent to lead the way with regarding that. As a good leader, would be the first to take the pay cut. Some of the other teachers have to take a pay cut in order to equal out the playing ground. And I quickly want to just address 7. There isn't a lot of outsourced jobs, but I do want to say that, that there's a fine line with outsourcing jobs. We obviously don't want to outsource permanent teachers or support staff. We want to invest in our community. But the food service, both districts have outsourced prior to consolidation, and they currently are. And then Virginia outsourced substitute teachers, but Evelyn-Gilbert didn't. And I'm sure that there are other ones too. But anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you. For something.
Brandy's got a lot of the teacher votes locked up, I'm sure already, but I still want to comment on this a little bit. We're talking about, with benefits, up to 80% of the school budget here, between salary and benefits and things. So anything that's done here turns into a very large sum of money. I know the EG teachers received that 4-3 raise, which was huge. I took that as that was a way we were trying to catch up Evelyn-Gilbert to Virginia. So when they voted Virginia to get a 2 and a 2, I was a little concerned about that, and why would we do that? Why wouldn't we freeze them to make it closer? So I didn't agree with what the boards did there. I was at the meeting, the consolidation meeting, when Noelle said there's no new money. In fact, as clearly as can be, there was a teacher to my right that was squirming in her chair very uncomfortably as he said it. So I knew then that it would be an issue, going forward. We have to be competitive, okay? I feel we lost some of our very best teachers to Virginia. My kids were very sad to lose a couple of them, and it was, due to pay, I'm sure, so we do have to even it out. How to do it, that's yet to be seen. But I can tell you what Catherine touched on, approving Noelle's contract is going to make things very difficult. You can't give yourself a 23% raise and then tell your teachers there's no new money. That I know. I've got 2 friends that I could consider good friends that are former superintendents. That's just not something you do. You take a freeze if you're going to freeze your teachers. That's just the way it is. And so I think we made a big mistake with Noelle's contract. Like I said before, at some time we must got to quit spending money. Not sure how all these administrative positions came about when we're consolidating early to save money. I've heard 3 different board members over the past week say, I don't know how we got from fall of 2022 to fall of 2023. Bad planning, is how we got there. So I think a lot of those being behind a year, I think a lot of those administrative positions could have waited, because to me, we're still where we were a year ago. So I don't know. It's going to be a tough one. I think administration created a nightmare for the RockRidge School Board coming up with this one.
Again, for the sake of time, I think what we'll look at is eliminating question 9 off of our questions and move to question 10, which I'll ask Ms. Lotiger to start. And if you can incorporate your closing statement within that answer, and we'll refrain to a 1-minute time lot for everybody on this to try to wrap things up. All right, so the question 10 is, what differentiates you from the other candidates running for the school board? And you have 1 minute.
All right, I'm going to make this quick. But one thing that differentiates me from the other candidates, I lead by example. I treat others the way I want to be treated, and you can learn a lesson from the kids right on the wall there. Respect means treating others the way you want to be treated. I don't believe in tearing down others to advance myself. In addition, I'm a local. I grew up in the Eveleth-Gilbert system, and I am an Eveleth-Gilbert graduate. My husband and I moved back here to raise our kids because this is where our roots are. We are lifers on the Iron Range. I have a junior. I'm an Eveleth-Gilbert parent. I have an education background. 4 years ago, when I was elected into this seat, I made a promise to advocate, collaborate, and lead, and I feel I've done that. And you can go to my Facebook page and read more about it. It's Brandy Lotiger, Brandy Lotiger, or Brandy Lotiger, EG School Board Director. As far as advocacy, kids contact me to voice their concerns. I'm proud of that. They trust me to advocate for them. And as you heard Mr. Crumpotich say, many teachers and school staff feel I support and value them. And again, you can see that on my Facebook page. I've collaborated. I'm open-minded and approachable. I work with board members, school staff, and citizens. I do take calls. I take emails. I've taken calls at 6 a.m., 10 p.m., and even midnight, because I value the input of our citizens. In closing, if you like what you heard from me tonight, please vote for Brandy Lotiger on November 3rd to represent the Eveleth-Gilbert District. Thank you.
So we have a minute and a half, or just 1 minute for 10
Do a
and...
minute and a half. Do a minute and a half.
Okay.
Be fair.
What sets me apart, I believe, I have experience in the classroom. I'm motivated to further the mission of public education. I have union experience with Education Minnesota. I possess the abilities to listen, communicate, and work as a team member. I'm not afraid to make a difficult decision, though it must take some research. I have no predetermined agendas or concepts to bring to the table. I know that kids are my #1 priority. The ability to decide what is best for all, and I covered that earlier. My closing statement is, I would appreciate your vote. But the second part of it is, I would like to recognize our teachers, staff, and our administration through this ordeal called the pandemic.
I can't speak to comparing myself to other candidates because I don't know half of them. But I've been around a long time, and I've seen a lot of changes in education, and that informs me thinking about many things having to do with education. I have experience serving on a board where I was responsible for multi-million-dollar budgets, personnel decisions, policy, and the general running of the hospital. I believe in high standards and accountability for the kids, for the teachers, for the administration, and the staff. And I do what I believe I was elected to do. I show up informed for meetings, I speak up and participate in discussions, and I make well-reasoned decisions. I support the development of critical thinkers, and I believe that they're the ones who succeed in life. And that's my goal, to create an educational atmosphere where kids can learn to be critical thinkers and be able to be a success in the future. Thank you.
Okay, I am your candidate if you want our district to be good financial stewards of our finances. I have and will continue to ask for financial information that it be available to all board members at our regular meetings, not just the Budget and Finance Committee meetings. At a minimum, that committee should be reporting back to the full board at our regular meetings so that we can keep up to date with any changes in the budget, finance, what is being looked at. I will advocate for all students, not just a few. We are better together in every way. I will work to get RockRidge's benefits available to all students. My past experience on the board is I served on the Evelyn Gilbert board during the consolidation with Gilbert. I was elected once as a write-in candidate to the school board. I believe consolidation with Virginia, as I said it earlier, is the best thing that's happened educationally for a long time on the Iron Range. And I want to thank you to the organizers of this forum. You did a good job. Thank you.
So I'm going to try and combine 9 because it's very important from my experiences. I think that parents, teachers, and students and support staff are doing a great job with the distance learning, and that a lot more training is needed for the different technology programs for parents, teachers, students, and support staff. And that they need to pick one platform, because otherwise it's very difficult and frustrating for students, parents, and teachers to try and learn and use those platforms. I would suggest that they try and make that change at semester, because trying to learn all these different programs is very difficult. And in Schoology, you can't even download any of the agendas or anything to be able to use it. At home, you've got to go between the different platforms, and it's very confusing and difficult. So when I'm on the school board, I would pick just one platform. Pre-K through 6, Seesaw works very well. For the upper grade levels, I'm not as familiar with that. But again, it'd be providing training for those students. It shouldn't be up to the teachers to provide that training, and it currently is. Any IT stuff has been having to go through the teachers. This should be going through the IT, where they should have instructional videos on how to use the different platforms. And more IT support is needed for the distance learning students. They should have a special page, the school district should have a special page for distance learning where it has contact information for IT and links to programs and informational videos, and to provide the support that is needed for teachers, parents, support staff, and students. The teachers and admin need to be more flexible with students. And the completing assignments and attendance, because otherwise if you're not on the Zoom meetings or the required assignments, your student's marked absent. That's a huge problem, because you only get 7 absences. So, yep, I will wrap it up. I got 4 things. No one else has my experience as a current parent of young children. I'm unique with an educational background and experiences in the classroom as a teacher and substitute teacher. I am a scientist by training, and I bring the analytical skills with me. And I will take the time to evaluate and plan, and not be afraid to ask questions and have a healthy discussion. I will also watch the budgets and hold the school board and the superintendent accountable. And in summary, I'm the best candidate for that large school board position, providing that open, honest, transparent leadership. So if you agree with any of those things, vote District Haft on November 3rd. Thank you. And I will represent you.
Well, when I look around the room, I see existing board members and one candidate besides myself. I see a lot of board members that just went with the flow. Some very smart people with their own opinions, just afraid to stand up and enforce them. Some of them I voted for, and I'm disappointed with the broken promises and frankly not standing up for what Evelyn Gilbert and making the correct decision on what was right for Evelyn Gilbert. Look at the consolidation vote. These board members didn't even want to send it to the public. If it was not for the threat of the petition, they wouldn't have. It would have slammed consolidation through without a public vote. Is that who you want representing RockRidge? I look back at the meeting summaries and watch board meetings and trying to find a single meeting where the Virginia School Board voted against anything that Nelle proposed in the past 2 years. I still haven't found one item. If you find one, let me know. That would cement the conclusion that Nelle ran the Virginia School Board and currently is running the RockRidge School Board. Nelle should answer to the school board, and the school board should answer to the public. If I was at home watching this, I would want change. The only change available to the public is myself and Catherine. I've never met Catherine until tonight, but she seems passionate and talks very fast, and certainly would bring change to the board. The public must decide if they like the way things have gone in the past 4 years or they want change. I think Evelyn Gilbert wants and needs change. Vote for someone passionate for the EG taxpayers, and they'll stand up for all students, not just ride the fence. Riding the fence is the easy way out and does not create change. Thanks to all for tonight.
Mr. Addy.
All right, I get to be last. Does that mean I get 3 minutes?
No.
As you know, I am a businessman in town. I am a Gilbert Buccaneer alumni from right here in town. My kids went through the Evelyn Gilbert School District. And as I said at many other board meetings, that I hope maybe someday my kids will move back to the area, and my grandkids will, if not, no pressure to my kids, no pressure, that they come back and their kids will go through school and graduate Wolverines. It'll be a trifecta of success, I would call it. I put my livelihood on the line as a business and saw the opportunity to help out 4 years ago. But there's lots of work to be done for the next 4 years. That is why I chose to run again. I have no self-serving interest as a board member, other than to serve the people that voted me in. I just want to make sure the project is done as promised to the voters. And as I said, there's still lots of work to be done. So I would ask you for your vote for the at-large position November 3rd. Thank you.
All right, well, I appreciate everyone's time, all the candidates' time and participation in tonight's event. Thank you to the Education Minnesota, RockRidge teachers that sponsored the event and pulled this together. And thank you to Access 12 for broadcasting it. I hope everyone has a good night, and thank you again.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Nice job as always, Brian.
Thank you.